Welcome everyone, Camel here with the Magicka Dragonknight DPS build PvE 4v Dragonbones patch on the Dragonbones PTS showcasing this build. The reason I'm emphasizing what patch this is because in Summerset this class will get some pretty solid buffs that could make it a lot better. From what I've heard, the next patch this is actually possibly the top DPS spec, but just keep in mind that for Dragonbones this is rather average in terms of its damage potential compared to the others in terms of ranged or melee setups. With all that in mind, though, I'm still going to go into this and describe to you how a DK does its damage so that if you want to pick it up now and try to learn the spec before it becomes better in the next patch, you can do so. We'll break down where the damage comes from, the rotation, the skills, the gear, all of that, the race, buff food, etc. I'll talk briefly about Summerset and what I think could change to make this a lot better and what probably will change. And what's been confirmed to change. And I'll also talk about the downfalls this class has as of now. Okay, so for gear, we have two ability altering staves, the Asylum's Inferno and the Maelstrom's Inferno. This does do more damage than, say, Moondancer 4-piece, but if you wanted to run Flame Whip over Force Pulse, you could run the Moondancer staff. Just keep that in mind, this is the max DPS for now. Next patch that could change. The Maelstrom staff is, it's on every single Magicka DD build. We have to use this, whether it be Lightning or Inferno. Inferno will give us more damage. You could run Lightning if you really want to. It's not a huge loss, but this is more damage overall, so I'd recommend running this. The reason we have infused weapon damage rather than perhaps Nirnhorn Poison or Nirnhorn weapon damage is because we bar swap a lot. This is a dynamic rotation, so we're going to be proccing our Berserker enchant fairly often. That's why Infuse is better here. It's more potent and it has a faster cooldown. Very important. Zaan is our 2-piece. Zaan is by far the strongest monster set in terms of single target damage. And it's only amplified even further by Engulfing Flames, which gives us 10% more flame damage, which is what Zaan is. So you can run this. If you want more AoE, Groth Dart probably works too. But just keep in mind, you already have a lot of AoE with this and this. Honestly quite strong. If you wanted to use Groth Dart, that would work too, but just keep in mind Zaan will be maximum damage. 5-piece Acuity, it does actually indeed outperform Spellweave even on a Magicka Dragonknight. Okay, so 5-piece Acuity is how we go. 3-piece Willpower, it's a little stronger than 3-piece Moondancer or IA. Ultimately, the extra Magicka and spell damage is worth it over 5% max Minor Slayer. Okay, so moving on, talk about the skills. Blockade of Fire is our strongest dot, and we needed to get the light attack and heavy attack buff from Maelstrom Staff. Keep this up. Eruption, 18 seconds, and Flames of Oblivion, 15 seconds. Because these are so long, we don't have to cast them too often, which improves our sustain a lot. As you can see, this is an incredibly expensive ability. 4K Magicka drains a big chunk of our max mag. It's actually more than 10%. But we only have to cast this like almost every 3 rotations, so this is pretty nice. It actually does help our sustain. If this was cheaper and shorter, it actually would hurt us more overall. Elemental Drain, you use this on the dummy or he will not be able to sustain, and in VMA, replace one of these inner lights with LE Drain as well. However, in a group scenario, you want Harness Magicka. We have to play melee because, as you can see, Burning Embers only has melee range. I had to get this close just to have it light up on my screen. Therefore, this is even more important, the shield, than on a ranged DD, because we'll be taking more incoming damage due to the fact that we are closer to the boss. This isn't a huge deal, and ultimately this is probably nicer than Deadly Cloak, because this can really save our ass sometimes, but, you know, we do need to have this. And it does hurt sustain slightly, but if we get hit by a spell, we get some Magicka back, so it's not the end of the world. Inner Light, we need this for max mag and not so much the spell crit, we get that from Flames of Oblivion, but max Magicka is nice. You want to keep this if you find spell power potions to be too expensive. You could run Molten Armaments here. It does give you a heavy attack boost, which is nice too, but most importantly, it gives you major sorcery for free without having to use spell power potes. Just keep in mind this does kind of hurt our sustain. It's not too bad because it lasts like 40 seconds, but still. And you'll lose some damage because you won't have max Magicka from Inner Light here. So it is a DPS loss overall. Standard of Might. This is nice. I mean, it also helps us take less damage in melee range and our allies, but it also does a ton of damage. It lasts for 17 seconds and will out damage this by a pretty good amount. However, keep in mind this is less AoE burst than this is, so this can burst down mobs faster. This is more sustained damage on like a boss. If you're in a really single target fight, use this. Like if it's gonna be like one ad occasionally, like with VAA or like VSO or something like that, or in like VAS for example, you should run this. But if you know there's gonna be a lot of ads, you want to be using this. You could actually run the Mage's Gull ultimate here as well. Just for a little bit more max Magicka, we hit almost 40k with that. It's ultimately up to you. If you want more AoE, run with Instruction Staff Ultimate, and yeah. However, if you use Flame Whip here, you absolutely have to use this or you'll lose the passive Ancient Knowledge, which gives us 8% more direct damage, right? That's important. So you have to keep this on here. If you don't have Force Pulse, you lose this passive on this bar. So you have to have this here if you use Flame Whip. If you use Force Pulse, you can run Meteor. Just keep that in mind. Okay. I'm going to show you the parse before I show you the CP, just so you know how to, play around with the CP if you want to, and just where our damage comes from. Alright, so our most powerful ability was Light Attacks. It's not a big surprise. Light Attacks always do the most if you weave them properly. Blockade of Fire is right after that. Burning X Zaan, Flames of Oblivion, Fire Weapon, Burning Embers, Eruption. All this is fire damage, right? So you really want to make sure to keep Engulfing Flames up, because that's 10% more damage to all of this. To literally every ability we have. Minus Trap and Concussion and Chill from Force Pulse. Everything is Flame. Literally everything. So keep Engulfing up. It's very important. The actual number itself, 38,338 DPS. You could get more than this, actually. You could probably almost hit 40k, or even hit 40k with this class, but for one, I'm not very experienced with this setup at all. I only have this character on the PTS, because I don't have one leveled on live, and I messed up the parse a little bit. I let Blockade fall off for Execute, but at the same time, that doesn't really matter too much. It's in this range of 38 to 40. Now, what matters more than the number itself is what that means in context. In a trial scenario, 38k for a Stam DD is comparable to something like a Stam Stork without Fracture. However, keep in mind that with Fracture, Stam Stork is more in the range of 42. So this is actually kind of low for a melee class, and we don't have some magical buff that will make us do a ton more compared to stamina setups. Stam setups, when given full trials scenarios with, Night Mothers, Sunder, all the other buffs they receive to penetration, will do a spectacular amount of damage. We get some other things too, like Minor Berserk and such from Combat Prayer, but it won't be so much that will be up a ton. This probably isn't hitting too much over 50k in a trial scenario, whereas Stam setups can hit like 60k plus. So as a melee, this is almost completely outclassed. In a ranged context, 38.3 is it's not bad. It's a little bit less than some of the better Pet Stork builds, and it's less than Magblade. It's on par with Magplar, but the thing is, this is not a ranged DD. We have Force Pulse and Flames, which can hit the target from a decent range, but look, even here, we don't even get to use Engulfing. I can't use Burning Embers, which is one of our stronger dots. The only things we can use is Eruption, Blockade, Flames of Oblivion, and Force Pulse. Everything else is out of range from this level, so we have to play melee. So even if our numbers are good as a Magicka ranged DD, they're not good for a melee. This is why Mag DK has been kind of left out of trials recently, is because why would you play this class in melee when you could play a Stam setup? The other issue is we can't run sets that can support the group for our melees, like Sunder or Night Mother, so we're even more outclassed by stamina that way. However, and this is a big however, in the next patch, a lot of sustain improvements and just some overall damage buffs of staffs being counted as 2 weapons We wouldn't use Asylum's Inferno staff anymore. We'd use something like Moon Answer perhaps, or something else, maybe Acuity here on the front bar, and then we could run Spellweave, Acuity, and Zaan, which could be a very big jump. We also get a lot of sustain improvements on Mag Decay that will actually make the DPS go up a lot. From what I've heard on the PTS for Summerset, or the pre-PTS I should say, this was the actually highest DPS setup. Therefore, it's actually justifiable. If this did more damage than Stam DDs, then by all means, this could be a melee setup. And according to Summerset's pre-PTS, this will be. Once the PTS comes out later this month, I will test this and find out for myself how much damage this does. But from what I've heard, it's a good spot. Now, for current champion points, and likely it's the same in Summerset as well, we have 30 into Spell Erosion, 39 Elemental Expert, 52 Elfborn. We have a lot into Elfborn because of Acuity, so keep that in mind. If you ran something like Burning Spellweave, you might want to redistribute this to be more like this maybe, or even like a little bit more in here. But with Acuity, we went more into Elfborn. 44 Mastered Arms is for Force Pulse or Whip if you use it. Flames of Oblivion as well, so keep that in mind. Thaumaturge. I know it seems like we're using the Explorer passive, but that's not why we have this many here. This could actually go up all the way to like 81 if you wanted to. Right, so you could actually put 81 here, or maybe even more. Dots are like our most powerful thing. So you really want a bunch here. It will be the bulk of our damage, so keep at least 60 plus in here. Anything below 60, you're probably just losing damage. And you don't need a ton into Master of Arms, and we already have a decent amount here. So 75 is a good balance. You can put a little more, a little less. It's up to you. The red tree, that's all preference. It changes for every trial. Keep that in mind. A lot of people have the exact same red CP for every trial, but if you want to maximize damage mitigation, you have to change around your CP setup to take less damage from that trial, depending on what damage it has. In the green tree, this is a preference thing, as are these two, so I don't have anything here because I don't want to suggest anything too much. You want a little less here and a little more here, though, as a basic rule of thumb. For this tree, which does matter, Tenacity and Arcanist, we're trying to do mostly light attacks, but at this current patch, and I'm not sure how Summerset will be, we need to do heavy attacks occasionally. We can sustain a mostly light attack rotation, which is why we have more into mag recovery, but next patch, you might be able to do full light attacks, so you might need less here, but for now, this is how it is. Okay, so now that's all covered. Rotation. Okay, the reason you can't even say Magicka Dragonknight has a quote-unquote rotation is because it is perhaps one of the more, if not one of the most, dynamic rotations in the game. There is no set thing that we do. It varies. But we start the fight like this. Okay? Ellie Drain, get your Flames of Oblivion up, cast an ultimate, Blockade, Ash Cloud, swap bars, Engulfing, Burning Embers, Rearming Trap, Force Pulse, Blockade's gonna run out, come back to this bar, boom, boom. From here on out, you just track your dots. As you can see, I see when they're going to fall off, and I reapply. I try not to miss any dots if I can help it. If you let a dot fall off for more than a second or two, you've lost significant damage. Just keep that in mind. So all you're doing is, in a nutshell, because that was quite fast and hard to explain, we're making sure that all our dots stay up on this dummy, or on the boss in a boss fight. Keep all your dots up, and when you have downtime, you're force pulsing, or you're heavy attacking. Mostly you want to limit the heavy attacks, and you don't need too many. And actually, in longer fights, the sustain is kind of better because of our Battle Roar passive, which gives us more resources for each point of ultimate cost. Since both of these are 250, it's going to give us a pretty good amount back, which helps us sustain. And next patch, it should be even better. You might not even do more heavy attacks, but for now, with Witch Mothers and all that considered, heavy attack perhaps 2, maybe 3 times in a parse. Most of the time, you want to be weaving Force Pulse, so keep all the dots up. And Force Pulse. I already know that Blockade's about to run out, as you see it just almost did there, and we keep this up. Just rotate between all your dots. If you know something's about to come down, be ready to do it. It's actually not too difficult, because all the dots are pretty easy to see, right? So you just make sure all the dots stay up. I'll let those two fall off for a second, but that's okay and execute. And that's about it. You have to work on it yourself. with the right rotation, you probably hit 40k. I told you I'm not as experienced, so I hit about 38, but it's definitely possible. And next patch, it will just be even better. Alright, so last thing I'm going to cover before we talk about this, well, last two things really. You have to use this food. It does kind of suck because the health is lower, but you can't sustain with blue food on this setup. At least for now. Next patch, like I keep saying, could be different. And for race, I really can't put this any other way. You basically have to be a Dark Elf. 98% of our damage is flame. So while High Elf does like work, this is just the best choice. We get more flame damage, and there's really no reason not to be a Dark Elf Magicka Dragonknight. If you already started this class and you have significant progress, like perhaps you're a Breton or a High Elf, and you're a Magicka DK, you won't lose way too much. You could lose like 2k probably, but ultimately Dark Elf will give you a lot of damage, so try to beat that. In the end, this class is not terrible. The rotation is fun to play and such, but it's not in a good spot right now. There's not really a huge reason to use this over a stamp setup because of its melee nature. But again, next patch this could change entirely. I hope it does for the sake of balancing all the classes together. I'll let you guys know. I hope this build helped for anyone who wants to play this class in this patch. Let me know how it went. See you all next time. Goodbye.